as I continue to pursue photography, I guess I find myself appreciating new things. I think that's kind of what happens with most hobbies, but one thing I've been kind of obsessed with is film photography. First getting my black and white film photos down in Lake Taupo, that was what immediately hooked me. I want to dedicate a whole video to just film photography because it is incredible what you can do. At my dad's work, one of his colleagues was getting rid of a whole bunch of stuff to throw in the dump, and he had a whole bunch of cameras, old film cameras, and he was going to give away this camera right here. It's a 1963 Vito CL film camera. Completely manual. It has a built-in light meter right here, so you obviously just point that and it kind of moves, and then you just adjust the settings accordingly. Now you adjust the settings by turning all these different dials and things, but it's so mechanical and so sick. Like, let me just sample some stuff for you. So this is for turning the film, and this is taking the photo. Like, those mechanical sounds are so sick. And also the shutter. To take the photo, you press down on this. Like, there's no button, you just press down on that. I mean, it's just so cool. I really want to shoot film on this eventually and see what I can do. For now, let's get on to the real video, and that is LEGO Photography Tips Part 2. Here we go. Now, the first thing we're going to look at is creating depth. Now, when you take a photo, or even just creating something like a painting, you have your foreground, middle ground, and your background. Those are basically your 3 layers to any image. But you can actually create more depth by adding things to your foreground, such as, blades of grass, extra Lego pieces, dirt, or anything that you can sit close to your camera lens will help provide an extra layer to your image. Which I think this image here is a perfect example of it. We've got Gandalf and Radagast, I guess, having a conversation, and this was kind of a high angle shot. And then as I got lower, you can just see the difference and you feel a lot more involved with their conversation. Because in most cases, when you're talking to someone or you're watching a film, everything is at eye level, and if you bring that eye level down to Lego figures, it makes the viewer feel a lot more immersed in the actual scene, and it makes it feel like a proper cinematic shot. And using the landscape itself, like the blades of grass and stuff, to create that initial foreground just helps the image so much more. Here are some other examples where I'm just using the foreground as much as I possibly can to kind of immerse the viewer in the photo a lot more than a typical, landscape shot of a Lego figure would. Tip number 2 is if you're using a DSLR or any type of camera that has a mount for a telephoto lens, I highly recommend using a telephoto lens. A telephoto lens has a long focal length, which is typically 70mm or above. So right now I'm using the 28-70, and you could technically classify this as a telephoto lens when it's pulled in at 70mm. So essentially, a longer lens compresses your scene and makes your figures look a lot larger and kind of more cinematic in a way. It helps separate the Lego figures from the background and it truly makes them look lifelike. Although they're plastic figures, when you apply a telephoto lens, it makes them look so much larger than they actually are. I've only recently just started using the telephoto lens on a big project, which will be coming out very shortly, and that really encompasses why telephoto lenses are important, but I can't share anything just yet. But I honestly wish I kind of utilized telephoto lenses a lot sooner, because the compression they have on images is uncomparable to a wide lens, and it also allows you to get a lot closer to the figures. Mind you, you do have to stand quite far away to pull focus, but it allows you to get a lot closer to the figures and just maintain that detail. Tip number 3 is we're going to be looking at reflections. Now, reflections can be created through puddles, mirrors, or even your phone screen. You can almost see that reflection. Honestly, reflections just give images a new creative edge that people don't typically see, because with Lego figures, you have to get close to the ground. That's the only way you can kind of get reflections, is when you're getting close to the ground. So the easiest way to achieve this is you can spray a bottle of water on the ground to help create a reflection, or you can find a puddle like I have in this scene here. Like, the image just kind of speaks for itself. I didn't plan this photo to turn out so well, but it just looks so awesome with Gollum on the bank here, and just the like fine reflection. These can only be achieved if you get as low as you possibly can to the water to create that nice seamless reflection. And it just creates a satisfying image because everything is reflected perfectly. When I first started LEGO photography, I was definitely doing a lot of reflection shots, but I kind of slowed down on them as I kept pursuing it. And after this shoot alone, I'm definitely going to start incorporating them into more of my photos. They're just very, very cool. Tip number 4 is we're going to look into activation. So many figures can tell a story on their own. They don't have to be holding anything, they could be just in a landscape, you know, and that tells a story. But if you want to push that further, you want to have something that activates the scene. And what I mean by that, that can mean a lightsaber, surfboards, guitars, or even using the unique terrain to your advantage. These small additions can just elevate your story so much further. For example, the pirate coin in the sand interacts with both the characters and the environment. Now, you could just have the pirates walking along the sand and that's your activation. They're interacting with the scene. But I wanted to push that further and give them a treasure piece, which was Pete's Pirate Life coin, and have that interact with not only the environment but also the figures as well. Again, it just pushes the story further, and I'm going to say this time and time again, story is always going to be king in these sort of situations, because the moment an audience member can lock onto the story that you're trying to tell, that's when you have a successful image. If you're going for a certain narrative that you don't want to explain, then having an obvious story doesn't always have to be the case. You can be very subtle with it as well. The biggest lesson I've learned through photography is when you go to an epic location, you kind of assess and you go, wow, this is a really cool place. But what you want to do is you want to think deeper than that, and you want to go, what makes this place so special? It could be the grains of sand, the towering cliffs, or the jagged rocks around the area. Figuring out what makes a landscape special is the key component to creating great photos, because then you can highlight those things with the LEGO figures. A while ago, I went to Lake Alta and I took some photos of Gandalf in the snow, and this was such an epic location. What I did wrong was I didn't really highlight the place in a great way. Yes, I showed the snow and the background, but that was it. There was nothing more, and I feel like I could have done more by bringing Gandalf to more of the rocks or even the frozen lake, but instead I just stuck to the snow. I kind of just used the background to like make the shot when there was so much more details I could have focused on. But here at Music Point, it holds some really interesting tree trunks and moss. And I wanted to highlight that by using the Green Ninja, and eventually found the spot where the tree trunks direct the viewer's eye to the main subject. In photography, you kind of train your eyes to look out for these small little things. It's essentially having a keen eye for special things within a landscape and finding different ways to highlight that. Lastly, for the final tip, we're going to look at car photography. Now, one of my biggest issues was I could never afford a Porsche, a Lambo, or anything like that. Any luxurious cars I couldn't afford, and I always wanted to take photos with. But the great thing about LEGO is, although they're still kind of expensive, they're a lot cheaper than the car itself. They're detailed, stylized, and you can shoot them literally anywhere as long as you don't place them on top of your car and have it roll off like it did in the last video. It's a great way to practice your car photography with little to no risk, because you have the car and you get to display it later on. If it breaks, you put it back together. You're not using someone's expensive car, using their gas, and you don't have to worry about permits or where you're parking. You just set it up wherever you want and you can take some great photos. So, I hope those tips were helpful. Let me know what tips you would like me to go over next. I will be doing a LEGO phone photography tutorial. I've got that on the back burner and I've got some really cool ideas for it, but I'm just waiting for a few specific things to line themselves up for that. But yeah, thanks for watching. If you made it this far, comment "we want LEGO photography tips part 3. And I will get onto that as soon as possible. I guess like the video, it genuinely helps a lot if you like the video, and also subscribe. Got a goal in mind before the end of 2025 is to hit 10k subscribers. I'm not always a big numbers guy, but I really want to push my YouTube now because I love making videos. Videos is very, very fun. Don't like doing the short stuff on Instagram. YouTube videos, I can be a lot more creative and have a lot more time to make proper videos, you know? I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye.